We cannot stop the genocide, but we can choose not to profit from it.
That's the basic line of thinking from University of Toronto faculty and librarians who voted in favor of a motion about how their retirement money is invested.
A concrete, practical step and action we could take as faculty and librarians who are deeply, deeply distressed and concerned about the ongoing genocide of Palestinians. We have a responsibility to help ensure that it stops, even in these humble ways that are maybe within reach.
Their so-called humble motion pushes the people who manage their pension fund to avoid investments in arms manufacturers involved in human rights violations globally. A lot of people may think that this is just about Israel, but that's not the case. Can you explain why?
It is, of course, related to the pertinent human rights atrocities being committed by Israel. But I think that given the international crises that are facing us today in Gaza, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Sudan, and particularly in Darfur, there's never been a more important time to disassociate a pension fund from weapons manufacturers that are complicit in human rights violations.
Now, the motion was divisive. 43% voted against it. I reached out to some of them, but they didn't comment. Regardless, this is what it sounded like in the room when the motion passed.
The moment that we saw the results was like nothing I've experienced before. Obviously, our motion doesn't snap our fingers and it makes the change happen, but it adds incredible weight.
So it doesn't change anything, or does it? It's complicated, so stick with me. Let's start with who manages their retirement money, the University Pension Plan. The UPP operates across 4 Ontario universities, holding $11.7 billion in assets, managing the pensions of more than 40,000 people. So U of T faculty and librarians are a fraction of it. But in 2024, Trent University passed a similar motion, as have several labor unions in the fund.
It's the issue of profiting off of war crimes, profiting off of genocide, profiting off of some of the most egregious situations is just, we refuse it. And we refuse it in Palestine, but we refuse it all over the world.
Palestinians in Gaza came under particular threat following Hamas's attack on Israel on October 7, 2023, after which Israel launched an unrelenting military campaign. By January 2024, the International Court of Justice concluded Israel must prevent genocide of the Palestinians in Gaza, specifically calling on Israel to desist from killing. That was followed by this opinion, finding Israel violated fundamental principles of international law, depriving the Palestinian people of their right to self-determination over a long period, and a resolution passed at the UN General Assembly last September calling on Israel to comply with international law to withdraw its military forces and cease settlement activity in occupied Palestinian land. That is relevant since the faculty's motion also urges avoiding investments in companies supporting illegal occupations.
The key phrase here is illegal occupation. So international law recognizes that during an armed conflict, one state may occupy the territory of another temporarily. And so long as it occupies and complies with international humanitarian law, that occupation is legal. But if it does not comply with international humanitarian law, the occupation may stop, may become illegal.
What kind of a company could support an illegal occupation?
Banks who provide mortgages to settlers, construction companies.
Pension plans, by their very nature, we don't know what the funds are. So how
That's
are
right.
people so confident that they know that the pension plan is invested in any firms, any of these?
So there are ways by which you can kind of take a peek into what might be in a pension plan.
So they used what's called proxy votes. Those are public shareholder records on issues affecting companies you're invested in. UPP's records for the second quarter of last year show it voted on issues affecting Lockheed Martin multiple times, suggesting it holds an undisclosed amount in the company. UN human rights experts have already said the transfer of weapons and ammunition to Israel may constitute serious violations of human rights, and specifically called on arms manufacturers, including Lockheed Martin, to cease weapons transfers.
The motion only basically expresses our wishes, right? It tells the pension plan, okay, this is what U of T faculty member, the librarian wants you to do or wish that you did. But we don't make the investment decision, and we don't have the power to compel UPP to do anything.
The UPP does not have to do it, so will it? The pension plan sent me a statement basically saying they are committed to ongoing engagement about the motion and would assess it through the lens of their responsible investing policies. Responsible investing is basically the theory that the best investment isn't just financial, but also takes into account things like social causes, and it's listed right in UPP's own policies. There is precedent for divestment based off social issues. Back in the 80s, during the rise of apartheid in South Africa, universities and pension plans all over the world, including U of T, divested from the country. Fast forward to March 2022, after Russia invaded Ukraine, the UPP and others quickly excluded Russian investments. Why is that easier?
Because the government of Canada spoke very loudly about whether things were legal or illegal and kind of cited the international laws that were broken. So for a pension fund, it is then very easy to say, we are worried about the legality of these investments, and therefore we are divesting, because it represents a risk.
Whereas in this case, the government of Canada hasn't called what's happening in Gaza genocide. Just in April, after seemingly agreeing with the phrase genocide the day prior,
actually, I didn't hear that word.
Mark Carney calling it only a situation, but highlighting that in 2024, Canada halted approvals of all new military export permits to the country, and by last March, Canada agreed to stop authorizing arms exports to Israel. What U of T is asking for is certainly picking up steam around the world. The UK's largest private pension fund divested from Israeli assets, a trend seen with Norway's largest wealth fund and several European firms too.
Part of the process of this motion is if we yell at UPP and then UPP yells at the firm on Bay Street or Wall Street, maybe Bay Street and Wall Street gets upset, but maybe they also turn around saying, there's some demand for funds that are free of a set of firms. That's how tobacco divestment worked.
The pressure to divest at U of T has been well documented, including last summer's student encampment calling on the university to divest from Israel, something that spawned the faculty's push right now.
The students who came out last summer created the opportunity for us all to act as we needed to. They gave us the courage to take up that space. And I think that legacy carried on.
That we actually put our money where our mouth is. We are willing to take those risks. And I think that put us in a much more strong moral position to demand similar things from the university.
In a statement, the University of Toronto maintains it has no connection to Israeli military action, but certainly when it comes to the retirement money of faculty and librarians, nobody is disputing a connection, and these faculty members say they will be watching closely. The sleuthing continues, so to speak, ensuring they're listened to.